Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be comparing the Ford Bronco Raptor to the Ineos Grenadier, because if you spec out one of these Grenadiers with all of the off-road goodies, you can get it pretty close in price to where the Bronco Raptor's at. So which off-road SUV should you buy? Before we get into this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Ed Kenley Ford for giving me some time with this Bronco Raptor. This one is available for sale for the time being. If you don't know, Ed Kenley Ford does not mark up their cars at all. So if you want a great deal on a Bronco Raptor, reach out to them. Like I said, link to their website in the description down below. Link to my car buying guide as well. Let's get into it. Powering the Grenadier is a turbocharged 3-liter inline-6 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It puts out 282 horsepower and then 331 pound-feet of torque. Real-world fuel economy is about 18 miles per gallon. Powering the Bronco Raptor is a turbo 3-liter V6 that goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission. It puts out 418 horsepower and then 442 pound-feet of torque. Real-world fuel economy is about 15 miles per gallon. Before we move forward with this comparison, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. So I feel like this color comparison is actually really good because it shows you just how gray Azure Gray actually is. Because when you see Azure Gray by itself, it usually just kind of looks like a blue with some gray hue, but when you see it next to a blue car, well, it looks a lot more gray. Anyways, with the Ineos, you can see like the checker plates there. It's got that kind of like old school off-roader theme with it, and so that's why the checker plates there, obviously functionality as well. And then we've got all of the lights here on the front. Center two are for off-road use. We've got a winch here, lots of skid plate protection underneath. So this is like dedicated to off-roading and more so overlanding. With the Bronco Raptor, you can see they've got like a sporty theme with it. I mean, look at the giant hood vent there. And then you can see the big chunky Ford logo. You got the marker lights because it's so wide, it needs them, federal mandate. Giant bumper here with a huge bash plate. The Bronco Raptor is more about that kind of high-speed off-roading. It does crawling as well, but there's a front end. And also notice the roof lines are pretty much the same height, even though the Grenadier has much smaller tires. And well, let's talk about those tires. So the Grenadier tires, I mean, they're like 32s, I guess, if you stretch it out. 17-inch wheels, Steelies on it. The Bronco Raptor also has 17-inch wheels, but we've got 37-inch tall tires. So we do have more ground clearance with the Bronco Raptor. It's about 13 inches of clearance, whereas with the Grenadier, you're over 10 inches. Still solid clearance, but not as much as the Bronco Raptor. And then look at the fender flare design here. So notice with the Grenadier, it's just very boxy, so you've got like just straight line back and then fender flare, whereas the Bronco Raptor, you can see same thing here, but then much bigger fender flare, and it's painted, so kind of interesting to see what they've done with the design there. And then this has a raised air intake, as you can see. The Bronco Raptor, though, you can remove the top, so it's got that's cool. Now the Bronco Raptor has independent front suspension, whereas the Grenadier, it's going to be kind of hard to see from a single. Solid front axle. You can see rock rail protection. We've got these side steps, but then there's also rock rails behind the side steps. And then the Bronco Raptor has a solid rear axle. And then we've got the live valve Fox shocks. The Grenadier has a solid rear axle. We've got Bilstein shocks with it, not an active system. Here's your side profile with the Grenadier. Here's your side profile with the Bronco Raptor. Now popping into the back area, you can see the Bronco Raptor has a 37 here on the back, full-size spare, which is really cool. Now this has a Wrangler-like cargo area. So you have this swing gate, that's the first point of opening, and then you've got the window. And you've got good storage space. The cage here does get in the way of the vertical space a bit, and then also on the sides here, you can see everything as well. It kind of takes away, but still it's a practical vehicle. And then you've got the window that'll pop down, and then the swing gate goes back. Pretty cool setup overall. Yeah, I mean the Bronco Raptor back end looks cool. Now the Grenadier is a little bit different. So we've got this door that opens up halfway basically, and then you've got the full door on the other side, swing gate. So a little bit of a different setup, kind of like a G-Wagon in a way, but 2 doors. But yeah, you can see you've got a lot more space here in the back because you don't have a cage, so more vertical space. And then you've got a little bit of space that's robbed there, but not as much as the Bronco Raptor. So a little bit more practical from that perspective. And then this is cool with the closing actuation here. And then you do have some lockable storage in the tire carrier area. Much smaller tire again. But yeah, seeing them next to each other, it's interesting to see again the height Look at that. They're like, there's a little bit of a slant here. But yeah, I mean, they're pretty much the same height. But with the Bronco Raptor, a lot of that height is getting up into the vehicle because it's clearance height. So once we're in here, it's pretty similar to like a Wrangler in terms of space. We've got a little storage pocket there. These seats are really cool. You can see they've got like the orange there, and this one has the orange seat belts as well. And look at the padding on the door panel. Again, very kind of like Wrangler-like inside here. So the window controls there in the center. And then again, like I said, you've got the top that you can take off. It does have good insulation though. Interesting to see the door handle difference between the vehicles. The Grenadier, I mean, you still have to step up into it. It's just not as high as the Bronco Raptor, the stock tires. See legroom here is a little bit better, not a huge difference. Vents here in the back. And then these seats are a lot more boring compared to the Bronco Raptors, but they're functional, right? Same thing with the door panel, functional. And then you've got good headroom. Stadium seating, just like the Bronco. I forgot to mention that in the Bronco, but both of them have stadium seating. And this leads us up front. I don't know if you guys can see, but this is actually blue with the interior color. It's like the navy blue. It's really cool looking. Same thing onto the seats as well. So I guess you gotta like blue, because blue gray on the outside and then inside. Payload capacity is 1,013 pounds for those of you that are wondering. Got the scribe handle, carbon fiber too. Look at the dash. Yeah, more of that blue. It's pretty cool with the start up with the gauge cluster and all. But yeah, you got a full digital gauge cluster here. We got a bunch of different drive modes too with this. Now, something that I do want to show is, listen to the door. Frameless windows, so you're gonna have that kind of window clunk. We do have adaptive cruise control with this. You got these cool paddle shifters here on the back. You can adjust the suspension, again, active shocks. You got the exhaust. You got your special mode. You can even adjust the steering as well. And you got the cool Raptor style steering wheel with the marker there at the top. And then we've got 360 camera with this. Off-road tech, stabilizer bar disconnect, front and rear locking diffs, trail turn assist. So it's got a lot of fancy off-road tech. We've got our dual zone climate controls, heated seats, and then we do have an advanced four-wheel drive system. It does have two-wheel drive too, which is a pretty cool feature if you ask me. And look at the shifter, that's pretty fun. And then taking a look at the center console, decent storage with it. Got the Raptor logo there. And I do like this with the stitching and everything on the dash. A bunch of auxiliary switches. Sorry, it's a better view. Seeing items. And like I said, got the top you can take off. Now up front with the Grenadier, again, not as exciting with the styling, but really tight fit and finish. Payload's more, it's 1261. And then taking a look at the seats here. Nice material use, just not as exciting. And then getting in a little bit easier than the Bronco. And then yeah, you gotta do this, key in the ignition. So more old school. No gauge cluster, just a warning cluster there. I do like the steering wheel. It's not as like sporty, it's just like this fancy brown leather, so I don't know, kind of cool. Obviously got the toot function, which is like a little bicycle horn. That's always something you gotta mention because it's fun. But listen to the door. Super solid sounding with the close. Got just a backup camera in reverse. This is your gauge cluster, by the way, so it's all built into the screen here. Infotainment system is easy to use, and you get used to this after some time, but it is something you have to get used to, right? And you don't have a 360 like the Bronco Raptor. You've got your climate controls and everything. Sorry about the wire there. We got heated seats just like the Bronco Raptor as well. So you do have those features. And then this is four-wheel drive all the time. You do have a center locking differential. The Bronco Raptor, right, you just pop it into four-wheel high or four-wheel low. Kind of like a similar functionality, because this right now is kind of like an all-wheel drive in a way, right? Because it's not center locked. Whereas the Bronco Raptor has four-wheel auto, which would be unlocked, and then four-wheel high or four-wheel low, which would be center locked. But shifter right next to that. And then you can see analog control for the infotainment system, and then center console lid. Like this, again, it's kind of similar to the Bronco Raptor with spacing and everything. A little bit wider, but I get maybe like less shallow would be a good way to put it. Got this cool grab handle there. And then we of course have the Safari windows, so you can't take off the top like the Bronco Raptor, but you do have some access to the outside. Tons of switches here at the top, kind of like airplane themed. And this does have front and rear locking differentials. Also has an off-road mode. So again, more old school with the tech, that's for sure. So this Bronco Raptor as equipped is over $99,000. And then this Grenadier builds, when I say build, just with the factory options and everything that it has, is about $94,000. So there's about a $5,000 price difference between them. Let's drive them and see which one's best. about visibility before you set off. Here's visibility over the hood. Both mirrors do have blind spot monitoring. And throughout the rest of the rear. Let us set up. Oh, gotta make sure the Grenadier's locked before we go and drive off. Boop, boop. Okay, let us set off in the Bronco Raptor here. So, I owned one of these, and I traded my Bronco Raptor for that Grenadier. I also traded a Land Cruiser, but, you know, I figured it was, that's a weird turn to make. I figured it'd be good to do a quick side-by-side drive. Good power with the Bronco Raptor, I will say that. Good power with the Bronco Raptor. It's gonna be a little bit of a shorter drive, by the way, but you know, I've owned both of these vehicles, so I'm pretty familiar with the driving dynamics. Great torque. Got the turbo noise too. This drives kind of like a giant razor. That's a good way to describe the Bronco Raptor. And because it's kind of like a giant razor, it also has some of the instability that you get from like a razor because of the shorter wheelbase. Like an F-150 Raptor is nice and stable, especially at high speed off-road. This, a little bit wishy-washy, right? Which, you know, that wouldn't be important if this was not a high-speed off-roader, but that's kind of what they're, you know, the big selling point of the Bronco Raptor with the giant Fox shocks and everything is it's a high-speed off-roader. But yeah, it's super tight handling. It kind of drives like a sport SUV in a way, but it's still like an off-roader. It's a pretty cool package, all things considered. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a fun vehicle. I think it is a jack of all trades, master of none type situation though, where it's trying to do so many things. It's trying to be a high-speed off-roader, it's trying to be a rock crawler, and it's also convertible. And there's just so much going on. They did a really good job with the engineering, but there's still a lot going on with the Bronco Raptor. But anyways, let's go jump into the Ineos. Let's talk about visibility in the Grenadier. Over the hood, both the mirrors, no blind spot monitoring throughout the rest of the rear. So I'd say that overall visibility over the hood's better than the Bronco Raptor, but then the rest of the vehicle, when I say the rest, I mean I'm talking mostly of the back, not quite as good. But I'll just use this like short drive to kind of sum things up. So with the Grenadier, this feels more old school, right? You've got the steering that is not direct like the Bronco Raptor. The Bronco Raptor has that like sports truck feel. This, it's got decent power. It's not as quick as the Bronco Raptor. I mean, well, it's not as big of a difference as you might think in terms of how it feels, but it's not as quick as the Bronco Raptor. Steering's not as direct, so this kind of has that old school off-roader feel, whereas the Bronco Raptor has the, it again, like it said, it feels like a sports truck. And here, I mean, really, but this does feel like a much smaller vehicle, and that's because it is. Yeah, not as quick as the Bronco Raptor, but it's still good enough for the acceleration. So yeah, when you put it all together, the Grenadier is really cool. It kind of has that, like I said, that old school feel. So it depends on what you're looking for. What I'd say is Ford put a ton of money into the shocks in the Bronco Raptor and into the, like, basically making that insanely capable off-road. But you do concede some of its manners aren't so great off-road. Like it's not as controllable as I'd like it to be for a Raptor. But that's where the money went in the Bronco Raptor, is cool convertible off-road. And then, you know, obviously the modern tech, you know, adaptive cruise control, blind spot and all that. With this car, all of the money went into stuff like the build quality, right? That's why it's so solid. Did I close that all the way, by the way? Yeah, I did. Super solid with the build quality, and then with the parts, really durable parts. So depending on what you're wanting will determine which one is better to go for. If you're like wanting durable, you know, off-roading, not high speed, but you're wanting something that's just gonna go for a long time and just be able to handle crazy stuff, that's what this is. The Bronco Raptor is gonna be able to handle crazy stuff, but it's not that same. It's a different type of durable, if that makes sense. Like the Bronco Raptor, you can send it off a jump and it'll be fine. But then if you, I don't know, if you did a huge Safari with it, you might have some electrical stuff, this or that, right? Whereas this, I mean, who knows, right? Untested brand, but it seems like this is the type of vehicle that, take it off a jump, it's probably gonna have some issues, but then if you did a 10,000 mile Safari, it's probably able to handle it fine. Let me know which one you'd go for.